All right, guys, there's no question that tech and AI are increasingly relevant and dominant conversations in the contracting space, in the roofing space, home services, in our world in general. I wanted to provide some more context on all of the new developments because everything is moving so fast. There's a lot of different types of conversations going on. I wanted to bring in an expert on the Nailed It show to share some actual real world experience and examples with us on how we can all implement AI and tech into our businesses to make us more efficient, more profitable, and to provide better and higher levels of service to our markets and ultimately give our customers what they really want and what they deserve. So today's conversation with my friend Jonathan Gibbs, we go into depth on how to utilize some of these tools, how to just get started if you're not really familiar with the whole landscape of AI and tech, and ways to really go deep and provide, again, a much more valuable level of client experience and service to our market. So tune in, take some notes. I'm really excited to bring you my conversation with my friend, Jonathan Gibbs. All right, Jonathan, what's going on, my man? How are you today?
Doing really good. Joe, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Yeah, short week. Recording this right before Thanksgiving. So we're trying to jam a lot into the week, as I'm sure you are too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Get a full week's worth of work here in 72 hours. That's always the game plan.
Yes. Love it. It's not or, it's and.
That's right.
So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about engagement, text messaging, being more efficient, being more profitable. I think those are things that are pretty enticing and pretty exciting for our audience. Before we get into that, all that good stuff, I hope we have time for all that, by the way. Give the audience a little bit of a background as to who you are and what you're up to.
My name is Jonathan Gibbs. I've been in solar and roofing for 11 years. Rex and Umi Shade started a small company in 2012 called Smart Energy Today. They actually started selling insulation products, solar attic fans, things like that. They did roofing as well. And they invited me to join them after 6 months. We added solar in 2013 and became one of the fastest growing companies in Washington State the next year, and then became one of the fastest growing companies in solar. Ultimately, we grew Smart Energy Day in 2020. We started an M&A process and grew them from $50 million in revenue to $1.2 billion in revenue through organic growth and by acquiring 3 other companies, AKE, Deca, and Lift Energy, forming Lumio. And so I was a CEO and deal creator at Lumio in 2021, where we ran a process with Houlihan Lokey, the largest debt broker in the United States. And we borrowed $120 million for that acquisition, merged those companies together, and created a multi-billion-dollar solar company in 2021. I left that and actually really spent a lot of time in software. I graduated college in 1998 into the dot-com boom and the later bust. And that was actually my favorite place I ever worked, where ideas are flying all over the place. Companies are getting funded on napkins. Like startups are going from 0 to $1 billion in several years. And it was so exciting. And, here we were over the last couple of years in another cycle of that, but to an exponential proportion. I mean, what blockchain and AI and fintech is on the verge of right now globally is just absolutely incredible. And so we moved our family here to Silicon Slopes. It's the #1 tech city in the world. It's produced more billion-dollar startups than Silicon Valley here 2 years in a row. It's the only city in the world to do that over the last 20 years. And so that shift. So Silicon Valley produced more billion-dollar companies every year for 19 years in a row. So like Shanghai, Berlin, like no one passed them, not even 1 year. And now Lehigh holds that for 2 years in a row. And so it's that time, like all over again. There's so much excitement. There's so much energy. The talent density is incredible. You can find yourself in a really thrilling tech conversation, just standing in line at the grocery store right now in Lehigh, Utah. So that's where I've been. I've been there for 2 years. And with a couple of my good friends, we launched an AI chat company last year called Neto, Neto. And we obviously timed it up really good. We didn't know that ChatGPT 3 was going to be released like it was in November. And so, sometimes it's good to be lucky where you time something up. And, we obviously, that's the first big AI wave. And so we came out of the gates really strong. We got almost $3-4 million in ARR really quickly from people I've known for a long time in the solar business. And now we're also doing campaigns for mortgages, insurance, smart home, pest control, voice and data, internet, high ticket coaching. I mean, I spent my life, I'm 46. I've spent most of my life building sales funnels and training systems. I've trained hundreds of thousands of salespeople, and it's rewarding. But what's rewarding about it is seeing a human grow, right? Seeing a human go from making a lot of errors in process to making less errors. But as humans, we're rarely perfect, right? We, even our best versions, like I was not my best self yesterday. I got on a very competitive call and there was a lot of things that didn't go my way. And I wish I had had better composure even yesterday. But, AI gives us, our tagline at Nito is the best of us. It gives us the ability to take the best responses, the best empathy, the best patience, the best product knowledge, but without any bad days, right? Without the pressure of commissions, without salespeople who are going through a divorce or having bad days. Or, one of the things that we don't address is there's no such thing as a normal mind or a balanced mind. And there's a wide range of what is considered just emotionally healthy and what people struggle with to stay inside of those range, right? With simple tasks and and of course, AI doesn't struggle with that. So when you program an AI to have a certain response and you monitor it over time, it's perfect, right? It is always patient. It always follows up on the exact right time, the exact right way. If you program it with patience, it's always patient. If you program it to be kind, it's always kind. And so there's an opportunity to really offer humanity the best of humanity, ironically, through a learning machine.
Wow. That's all you have going on. That's it. Man, that's a lot. That's quite a resume. Really cool. I love that the best of us, because just applying it to my day right now, today we had our sales meeting right before our weekly level 10 sales meeting, and we're going through, and you're right. There's so many variables, right? What happened on this sales call? Oh, the prospect negotiated the discount. Well, why was he able to negotiate that? Like, what happened? Like, were you in a scarcity mindset or as opposed to abundance, or were you in a rush, or like, hey, do we follow up with this guy? There's so many manual moving parts, and I can feel it. Like, we are leaving a lot of opportunity on the table because we're not able to follow up enough. We're not able to follow up in the method that people want to be followed up with. So as you know, we mentioned, and we'll talk about it, text messaging, Facebook DMs, Instagram DMs. Different people like to be communicated with different ways. We can email someone 10 times. I can email you 10 times, you don't reply. I send one Facebook DM, bam, right away, we're in a conversation. It's kind of wild.
For sure.
So I'm looking at it. I'm thinking about what you're saying, like the best of us, and just like engineering that process and how much we're potentially leaving on the table there. So
I'll give you a couple examples, right? So one example would be a follow-up sequence. So you can program it to follow up with people in a text message. When you're following up in a phone call, like when a call center is following up with a client for an appointment, most people don't answer their phones. So you're going to call them. When someone sees a phone number coming into their phone and they don't answer it, you're immediately devaluing the opportunity and the appointment, right? So just putting them in a position to reject you is increasing the likelihood that they're not going to show, like psychologically. There's a great episode of Seinfeld that talks about having the upper hand. And, you sort of create that when you are trying to contact your clients in a mode of communication that they don't prefer, right? You're just giving them more of the upper hand. You can program a text follow-up sequence really quickly in one day. And you can just say, followed up, 24 hours before, morning of, an hour of. And the thing is a lot of times in roofing sales, solar sales, door-to-door sales, a lot of salespeople will use, kind of manipulative language to make people feel guilty for showing up, right? Like they're coming back to their home. They want hey, I'm going to be in this neighborhood. I'm driving a long way. Hey, I've really and really what we're doing is, if we said that in a dating situation, we would actually be turning off our potential date. But we say it in a sales situation because we don't want to be hurt, right? But like when someone comes to a first date and all their languages don't hurt me, like we immediately are like, I'm going to go before dessert gets here, right? And so this gives the right, but we do this because we don't want to drive 45 minutes through traffic and then get no-showed at the door, right? Like we have a life too, but sales is really an unfair playing field. Here's a great example of AI follow-up. We had someone reschedule an appointment 12 times and then buy.
Wow. And then buy.
Yeah, as a sales manager, you would never even like condone that type of activity, right? Because you would tell your salespeople, hey, go find a new lead, work on a new prospect. Like, this isn't worth your time.
Yep.
If you think about it, like, I scheduled an appointment with a dentist and then didn't show, or rescheduled or moved it. Moving an appointment doesn't show interest. In fact, moving an appointment more than once, I would argue, shows interest. And so getting the customer, giving the person the ability to move their appointment in a text message, which is their preferred method of communication, right? Like, we all know, like, millennials and under, they don't want, which are 25 to 41 right now, right? 70% of the workforce. Like, if you want to just scare someone, tell them 70% of Goldman Sachs's employees are millennials.
Whoa. Yeah.
Because 70% of all the employees are millennials right now. They're 25 to 41 and they don't answer their phone, right? Like, if, in fact, even when their friends call them, they'll say, why are you calling me? Like, you know, like, you'll text them like, hey, what's up? when someone calls you.
Absolutely.
So give the customers what they want. Like, I've been studying a lot of what T-Mobile has done. Like, if you look at their CEO, right? T-Mobile was not the most valuable cell phone company. In fact, far from it. They were at the bottom of the list. Today, they're the most valuable cell phone company in the world. And his thesis is delight and satisfy your customer, love your customer, put them first, and change the rules of the industry to their favor.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
If you can look at your business and if you can give the advantage, right? If you can bend the rules in your business to the advantage of your customer, customers feel that way. Like, right now, most sales teams, the customer's at a disadvantage, right? Like, they don't get the price, they don't get information ahead of time. Like, it's really controlled by kind of an old school sales funnel, right? Like an old school sales mandate. And customers, we feel that, right? We feel like, man, I don't really have the advantage here. I don't want to really work with that customer. You want to make your customer feel powerful. You want to make them feel in control. You want to make your customer feel like the advantage. Give them the information they want the way they want it, right? A great example of this is Facebook. Right? You can take someone and they will have like 100,000 impressions on their ad, 10,000 clicks on the ad, and like less than 1,000 form fills, right? So it means as someone goes through that Facebook mousetrap, they become less and less interested with sharing their information, even though they lingered and looked at the ad or clicked on it, right? There was something about the ad that was appealing to them. Okay, by putting text me in your ad, right? Tired of running around, text me. Right now, the 100,000 people, you're basically saying, we know that a Facebook ad is a mousetrap. And if you want the cheese without the mousetrap, just text me.
Yeah.
And then they click on the form fill, right? They click on the landing page and it's like, hey, you want to answer now? Text me. If you give a customer the opportunity for the cheese without the mousetrap, they'll take the cheese every time. What's amazing about this is that text now with AI has a 24/7 response. So I used to run a call center and we used to send people home on swing shifts, Joe, with burner phones, because we knew that if they clicked on a Facebook ad at 11 o'clock at night, if we contacted them within 5 minutes, we had a much bigger pull. And you know this because you've done a lot of this. You have a much bigger pull through, right, through your funnel. Well, giving the customer the opportunity to interact with you in the funnel at any time is like opt out, like go to the finish line, right? It's like Chutes and Ladders, that one ladder that just goes right to the finish line. Like, like right away, you can just win the game, right? Like, that's what people want. And so AI has the ability to do that. We're seeing Facebook campaigns generate 200 to 400 times the response just because someone can ask a question now and get a really intelligent answer, right? I've had 15,000 different solar salespeople work for me over the last 11 years. Like, Annie can answer any of their questions better than any of the salespeople I've ever had. It's 100% truthful. She never makes up an answer. I can give her the actual websites, product cut sheets that I want her to read from. I can make her an electrician. I can give her the building codes of certain areas, the setback codes. I mean, like, we don't even have to train salespeople anymore. Like, we can literally create a resource for every single roofing salesperson where they can, instead of asking their manager a question, they can ask that same question to a 24/7 cell phone number in their cell, and they can get the answer immediately on every single shingle, every single setback, every single code, like everything. When we used to train our roofing salespeople, we used to have a 70-page PowerPoint. It was like a whole day training. I mean, there's a lot to know, and that's really what it is, right? Like, we don't have to memorize or teach everybody all the information anymore. We just need to teach them how to access it and how to use it. And so now scaling and servicing our customers is a multitude easier than it was, just a year ago.
Wow. Awesome. Who was that? Was it Henry Ford back in the day when they asked him like, hey, they asked him a bunch of technical questions and he was like, I don't know the answers to those questions, but I do have a factory full of people that have all those answers. So I don't need to know those answers. And what you just said about the salesperson doesn't need to know all of the details and all the answers. They just need to know how to access them right away. That's huge, especially in the roofing industry where most leaders and owners don't provide the training to their teams that they actually need to be successful, which is sorely lacking. I don't know if that's the same in solar as roofing, but it's a big problem.
Yeah, I bet all the big shingle manufacturers will make, instead of, a local rep that comes around once a month and does trainings and product informations, I'm sure over the next couple of years, they will publish phone number that people can just store in their phone and literally ask it questions 24/7. But that doesn't mean, but if someone wants to get ahead of that, they could produce that really, really quickly. I mean, it basically take all your content. I mean, like our AI bot learned everything on Wikipedia in 3 hours.
Wow.
And that was when we were training a year ago. Now I can just, in our frame, I'll show you here in our dashboard. Here's our Nito dashboard, right? So every day it will tell you new messages for the day, week, etc. And you can see sort of your KPIs. You can load in your contacts. So customers who bought a roof from you, 22 years ago, like they're right on the cusp, or if they need a product, you want to check it in. So you can just like upload a product set, upload a campaign. You can sort by status. You can see every single conversation. So even these conversations where we're waiting for someone to reply, like people will have a conversation with the bot, Joe, over like 8 weeks.
Wow.
Right. And so like you can just jump, you can like see these conversations and you can just jump into them. Like you could take it over and you could just jump, like, can you match the price? Right. And you can just jump into this conversation right here.
Wow.
So on this particular campaign, they didn't want us to answer the price question. So we probably passed that. When the bot books an appointment, it books it directly into your calendar. If someone has their own CRM, like we can just like do a Zapier connection to it for them. But if they don't, they can just use this as their business intelligence. Salespeople get really, really excited because they can see the entire communication. So right here, you see, fair point, John, the break-even period might feel long, but remember, the sun works over time without asking for a raise. Just think about the long-term savings and lesser dependency on the grid. It's like growing your own money on trees. Would you like to discuss more over a call? I'd just like a charger. So he wants to schedule an appointment for a charger, right? And so right now, she's adding this response. She's updating the information so she can return this later and not pressure him on the charger. And then she's going to book this appointment here. We can certainly help you with an EV charger. When's the best time for our team to discuss the install details, John? Feel free to choose any day, time. That's not in 1980. This one has been programmed with the owners really wanted like a little sarcasm, like little cheekiness in there. Anytime works. Annie is calling the customer right now because he said anytime work. Annie did a live pass. So she connected him right now. So the bot has the ability to just call the customer and then patch it directly into the call center. Absolutely. Calling you right now.
Amazing.
We have a training place where you can connect it to websites, documents, etc., that you want them to be a master of, that you want them to be able to quote from, and it's all right here in a really simple dash. So like to your point, all this product information, right? That we have reps sit for days, right? We give them tons of cut sheets. They don't carry them around. Customers ask questions. They just say, I don't know, call a manager, make up an answer, do their best to answer it inside of their knowledge. We don't have to do that anymore. We can put the salesperson in charge of the relationship, in charge of the presentation, and we can literally enable them with something in their pocket, on their cell phone, on their tablet, with every right answer that they'll need during their normal course of business.
Again, apply this to my own situation. Like this morning, we have a roofing company owners in my DMs asking, like, he wants to start his own podcast. He's looking for like, what equipment do I get? And I'm like, man, like there's so many different ways I can answer that. And actually asked me a couple of days ago. And it wasn't until this morning, I'm like, holy cow, I actually created a Google Doc for that exact thing. Like 6 months ago for another roofing company owner, and I dug it up and I sent it to him. I'm guilty of that. I create stuff all the time and I forget that I create it. And then I'll go and answer the same question over and over in different ways. So like I could just envision us, for example, like uploading that into the tool where that like info is just accessible right there. And I know every company is the same way, right?
People, think of your website. So I believe this is going to make a lot more websites kind of just look at like Google or ChatGPT, right? Like we can create an avatar. Like, so for one of our clients, like Quilly Mortgage, Quilly Financial, like their mascot is a porcupine. So it doesn't have to be a human. So the person that answers all their question is a friendly little porcupine, right? And it can be on their website and it can literally answer any question on their website. So when someone comes to a website, what are you looking for, right? A lot of times people's websites, they're like Google, like they're so dense, there's so much information, people don't know where to start. We haven't all had good experience with those chat bubbles, right? Because we'll go into the chat bubble and then we'll wait for minutes in between, where we're talking like 1 to 3 seconds, right? We're talking like 1 to 3 seconds. Someone asks a question and it's not just like ChatGPT 3, right? Or ChatGPT 4, where it's just question response. We can program this like a salesperson. We can program this to keep the conversation going. We can program this to memorize all the information about the customer, follow up on every birthday, follow up on their kids' birthdays, right? Follow up on their product anniversary. Imagine the best salesperson that you've ever worked with, and imagine that they only had 10 customers a year, like total a year, and they just had to treat every customer perfectly for like on every step of the sales follow-up upsell process. Well, this can do this, and it can do it at scale for basically pennies per text.
Wow, that's awesome. So you have your own tool, Nito. There's a lot of other tools out there, I guess I'm sure not as good as yours. And so someone's listening to this or watching this right now, roofing company owner, contracting company owner, leader, sales manager, what have you. And they're like, man, Jonathan is just spitting fire. This all makes sense. Kind of like I'm thinking right now. What's like the best way for someone to like get started with something like this without getting overwhelmed? Because it can be overwhelming, right? There's a lot of questions out there. How can someone kind of take that first step?
I would say if you're spending any money on marketing, take that step first, right? Because you're already spending dollars. It's going to enhance your dollar spend, right? So if you're spending money and your phone is ringing, or you're spending money and it's driving people to your website, or you're spending money on Facebook or Google AdWords, those are really what we call high intent leads. Like you're spending money to get them to contact you, and they are contacting you. And so what you want to do is give them 24/7 ability to contact you and 24/7 response on demand, because it will automatically enhance what you're doing now. If you have door-to-door teams and they're knocking doors, you can maximize what they're doing by creating a QR code and putting it on the back of their name tag. And because some people want to schedule an appointment and then they never show up for that appointment. If they schedule an appointment, have them scan the QR code, starts a conversation. They can get information before their appointment. And so now their appointment is a buying appointment, not a selling appointment, because they've engaged with it. They've asked questions. They're sort of prepared for what's coming. If they don't want to schedule an appointment, this will help you get the data. You know, a lot of companies have knocking apps and things like that, and they purchase the data and they put it in your app. But that doesn't give you the ability to use it. Just because you have someone's email and phone number doesn't mean you're allowed to use it. In fact, you're not allowed to use the data like in marketing and texting just because it's in SalesRabbit, right? But if the customer gives you the data or starts talking to you, you're allowed to use it. So let's say you're knocking on a door and they're engaged, and a brand new person knocks on a door and they're engaged, they're very excited, right? An experienced person knocks on a door. If the conversation ends any way other than appointment, they think it sucks, right? But a brand new person's excited. Like you could take a brand new person out door knocking, they get a phone number, they're excited, right? An experienced person, like that doesn't make any money, but this time it does. If you can just get someone to have a conversation by saying, hey, listen, I get it. Like, I just knocked on your door. You don't want to be talking about this roof, but there was a storm here and we are helping your neighbors. And a lot of people here are eligible through their insurance to get a free roof or to get their roof replaced. And if you just want to ask questions, here, scan my QR code. This is our AI buying assistant. This will answer all of your questions completely honestly, and it's not even dependent on my company. If after talking with it, if you would like to schedule something at any point in time in the future, a week from now, a month from now, just ask it to schedule an appointment for you, and it will schedule an appointment with me, and I'll come back here and talk to you so that you get more out of it, right? Like the data is the new oil today, right? If you look at all these companies with huge value, it's how much data do you have that you're allowed to use? Because data is the value. If you sell that account the right way and you treat them the right way and they have a great experience, you can use that data to cross sell them, 10 or 20 other products and services. So like start where you're at. Like where are you bringing in most of your business? If you're spending money on ads, add an AI contact to that. If you're spending money on the door, add an AI resource to that. And then referrals or a company training manual. In like 2017, we had a resource. We used GroupMe, and we put all of our sales and sales support resources on there. And we just kind of gamified it where someone would ask a question and we had like rewards and kept score of whoever the first person was to answer their question. And so it created a great community of people helping people. And that was great. But the reality is me and the other owners were monitoring that thread all the time because people would say things that weren't correct. And not everybody was available Saturday night at 8 o'clock, right? And so you're in a small business and you're just on call. Like, to the roofers out there, if you've ever walked out of a dinner or you've walked out of a movie or, you've had to excuse yourself from some type of family event to help a salesperson in the home, we can be friends.
Yeah.
That was my life for 12 years. And so being able to just have a resource on demand for any of your employees 24/7 where they can get their questions answered, that's going to increase the quality of everybody's life. It's going to drive sales. And these are really inexpensive things to do. Like doing something like that and putting it on your company's website, it's not even expensive because there's no texting fees. Like people could do something like that for a few $1,000s a month. Our minimum package is $10,000 a month, includes 20,000 text messages. So, if you're spending $20,000 or $30,000 a month or more in advertising, adding $10,000 to that to double or triple your response is like a really good investment. If you're not quite there yet and you want to play around with something, for solar and roofing, I like Lead Genius, and it's a small company out of Utah, like literally owned by a couple guys. They have a program for a couple $100. I think it's like $200 a month per rep. I think there's a couple other programs out there for $100 a rep. We just need to spend time on it. We're here at the very, very beginning. I do know that in the solar and roofing space, very, very, very few companies have deployed this, and almost no one has deployed it at scale. And working with a really large contractor to deploy this at scale. And so, people just invest an hour a day into learning and using these type of tools. They're going to become less scary. They're going to become more attractive, and you're going to be able to discover for yourself more ways you can incorporate this into your business.
Love it. Yeah. Everyone's looking for like, how do I differentiate? How do I stand out in a crowded market? I'm selling the same shingles and the same warranties. I'm using the same crews as some of the competitors down the street. Like, how do we stand out? So this type of thing, the engagement, which I want to talk more about as well, being a resource, catering to how your customers want to buy, not necessarily how you want to sell, like forcing that sales process on people just doesn't work like it used to. So
customers are smart.
Yeah.
We used to say customers have an anti-buying strategy, right? It's not a coincidence when you come to run your appointment that's been scheduled for 3 days and the wife has gone to the store or is taking the dog for a walk. That is a strategy of a couple who have been slammed in a timeshare presentation or a spa, or that's how they bought their last roof, or so, you know what I mean? And like, they don't want to be boxed in anymore, right? And be played against each other by a very sophisticated salesperson, right? So customers have they really do. Like when we come to their home or we get on a Zoom, I think most educated customers have an anti-buying strategy, right? Like they are trying to get what they want their way because it's their money. I mean, and that's what we have to understand is like, we need to make sure that home services doesn't become as irrelevant as like automotive, right? Like no one likes buying a car today.
Yeah.
16-year-olds, 46-year-olds, professionals, newbies, no one likes buying a car. We all feel like we're walking onto like a trap from like 1960 or 1980, like some bad movie. And sure enough, they just take you through the same spiel that all of us have, and they act like we've never heard it. Like if you've bought 3 cars, you've heard the same thing 10 times, and they just act like this normal, and it's not normal. Like we should enjoy spending $60,000 on a car. We should enjoy spending $100,000 on a car. People should enjoy buying a new roof. They should enjoy buying windows, blinds, solar, etc. It's their home. It's their money. If we make it fun, if we make it enjoyable. And what's fun and enjoyable is for people to feel like they're winning and they're doing it their way, that they're in control. And I've definitely run companies, 10 years ago or more where that wasn't the case, right? But I've changed my mind, right? I've changed the way that I want to build, my mousetrap. And what I'm trying to do is just give people the cheese without there being a mousetrap, because I think that's what people want.
I love that. I love the cheese and mousetrap thing. I love the thing. I love the aspect of people being in control, people winning. The best deals, transactions, purchases, investments are when everyone feels like they are winning, right? So I think that this achieves that. These types of tools, these types of innovations, technology help everyone achieve that. What else? What else is important? What else does the listener, the viewer needs to know? I know you mentioned engagement, Jonathan, right before we hit record. That's a big thing, how you can engage with your prospects, with your clients without them feeling like you're always reaching out just to kind of upsell them or sell them something else.
Yeah, that's good.
How does that all tie in?
I think we should just spend our time on like two more concepts and keep it really simple for everybody. I think you're into a really good concept of engagement and another good concept of volume. And so the idea is engagement is different than advertising or soliciting. Engagement is communication with your customer for the sake of engagement, right? Like noble engagement doesn't have a directive or an agenda. I'll give you a great example. My mom worked in the car business for 18 years. Every single month, she would write a handwritten postcard to every single customer and thank them, and then put on like a quote for the month or a little something. And after 2 years, people would walk onto the lot and just ask for her. And she never had to get a new lead. She would just communicate with every customer every month, and they would either come back and buy from her or they would send people to come back and buy from her. That was a good example. It was so successful. One of her car lots automated it. Like they bought like a machine that would write the notes for everybody. And so, you've seen those, right? And those sales people just kind of sign those, and those work. Like First Form puts a handwritten note in every...
Love that.
Or so my wife's a first former, right? And so it's like, and after this, the first time you go, oh, this is cool. But like 2-3 years later, 4 years later, it continues to have an impact on me because it's like the consistency. Wow. Like this company is committed to these handwritten notes inside of every box that they ship, right? That's engagement. And noble engagement, that the kind of engagement that has the most impact of people is when it's clear, right? There's not like an underline, right? You're not just trying to get something from them. Yeah. And so it's hard to do this when you have postcards that can cost $2 to $3, or you want to mail flowers or cookies to someone that costs $40, $50 times 1,000 customers, right? Or you have a call center and you're paying $20 an hour for people to call and say thank you. Like these things can be expensive. We can text people for like a few cents per text. Like you can have a very sophisticated campaign at 25 cents a text, 50 cents a text, and really make your customers feel important. Ask your customers, right? Some of you have huge customer bases. You can start talking to them right now. Send them a text message right now and says, hey, we believe that interest rates are going to come down next year. If interest rates do come down next year and you can get really cheap money, is there anything you want to do for your home? Have you bought an electric vehicle? Is your heating and air conditioning unit working? You know what I mean? Like, is there any cosmetic, would you like to paint? Just asking them, well, if you had extra money that was cheap, would you spend it on your home or would you spend it on something else? Like, that's a great way of engaging people, asking people how they're doing after a storm or a situation or some type of economic event, letting them know, hey, we're reaching out to our customers. We want to engage with you more. We want to check in, have you tried to contact us at all over the last, in 2023? If so, how did it go? Right. So like, this is great engagement. Now you have a communication start and you can see all the conversations happening in your portal. And now you have conversations going. So let's say then in January or at Christmas time, you want to make an offer, making an offer into a text thread that already has communication saying, hey, wanted to follow up with you. We've listened to some of what you've said and we put together this offer for you. Is this something? That type of offer has a 5 to 10 times more response rate than a first time offer, right? Then let's say, hey, free EV charger with a new roof. Hey, like that stuff. We're so overstimulated with that kind of stuff. It's like our first reaction. I mean, think about it. We all of us rejected the iPhone like 100 times. Do you remember walking through the mall, right? And some guy would try to like push it in your hand, right? You'd walk and it was like 22-year-old kids in the middle of the mall and they kept pushing us, telling us, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. This is amazing. And they were right. I love my iPhone, but I rejected it for years because of the medium that they were trying to give it to me, right? I rejected it because of their approach, not actually because of the product. So having engagement, right? Because their only engagement was like push, 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 push.
Yep.
So having engagement, having lines of engagement, and it's never been cheaper to engage with your customers over something like this, right? Like communication, like everybody, if you have 1,000 customers, right? And you want to send them a text for like 10 or 15 cents each, right? Like that's super affordable. Like we could all do that and make our customers feel valuable and then start the conversation. So when we have another product to upsell or we want to offer them something in 30 to 60 days, like that's going to be better received. You're also giving them an invitation and a forum to solicit like meaningful feedback. And, AI is really good at this because when people recognize that it's an AI, I like to just identify it as an AI. People will be brutally honest with it. They will name people at the company they don't like. They will be very specific with types of treatment that they have had that they don't like. And you will get like a real hardcore, unfiltered feedback, which all of us should want. We should all want feedback, even if it hurts our feelings.
Yes, I absolutely love that. Yeah. On that note of like not engaging, like this is Thanksgiving week, right? We have like Black Friday coming up, the Christmas holidays, all that stuff. Like we're getting hammered with emails and text messages from companies that we don't hear from at all throughout the year.
That's right.
And all of a sudden like, oh yeah, it's Black Friday. I should do a special and like hammer my email list. Like, come on, man. And as a marketing guy, like you see right through it, obviously. Yeah. So that's so key to keep in touch with people, whether or not you need something or you're selling something or offering something. That's just good business. That's human to human business. And then what's the other thing, Jonathan? You mentioned volume, right?
Yeah. The other thing I would say is volume. So before we start worrying about how AI can basically take over our businesses, take over our jobs during it, we should really look at the simple ways it can enhance it. And I think a really good example of what's capable is what we have all seen in grocery stores over the last 2 years. So we've all seen most of the major grocery stores near us roll out a self-checkout item for the same price. Now, I think it's really important that we consider that we're taking a line of business, the checkout, and we're giving people two different options, and both of those options have the same price. They both have a value to the business, and they both have a value to some of the clients, right? Because choice always has value, right? Like same thing, like if we go back to T-Mobile, like, turn all the rules in your industry in favor of the customer, right? Like customer doesn't, like how many times have you been there at a grocery store and you're like, there's all these checkout stands and we're all in the line with one, right? Like, why can't I just go check myself out? Like I just have a soda, right?
Right.
And so we went from one employee being able to manage one customer over like 3 to 5 minutes in one line to one employee being able to manage 5 or 10 lines and just kind of monitor it. I think this is actually what the huge growth AI is going to look like, especially in sales over the next 3 years. I don't think it's going to be replacing salespeople. I think it's going to be enhancing salespeople. I mean, if you had a salesperson that can handle 5 or 10 times more touches per day, per week, per month, even if they make slightly less on each sale, there's going to be more laydowns and more volume, right? So there's going to be more reward. There's going to be more relationships. There's going to be more referrals. And a lower price doesn't necessarily mean less money. I mean, if we look at Uber is less than cabs, more valuable. Southwest was the most inexpensive airline for a long time and quickly became one of the most profitable. Like bending price and convenience towards our customer doesn't mean that customers or salespeople lose opportunity. In fact, most of the time when we figure out how to do it, it means the opposite. That's where we should spend 2024 together sort of playing in a sandbox and saying like, how can we use this tool to make customer service easier, to make sales easier? Like, how can I use this? I mean, we all know that salespeople prefer appointments over canvassing or knocking, right? So if we can use this to create more scheduled appointments, I can hire better salespeople, right? Like I can hire more experienced salespeople. I can hire people with an experience in mortgage, real estate, automotive, insurance. I can hire people that used to be their own business owners. They're 50 years old. They have a lot of experience, but they'll sit at a Zoom all day, with 4 to 8, qualified appointments. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for people to use the AI to enhance volume and to really scale their businesses. Because once you program it, like once you program one customer service agent, it's basically instantly 1,000 or 1,000,000, right? Once you program one salesperson, it's like instantly 1,000, 1,000,000. It's basically like, what is your appetite to now deploy this and service it?
That's fascinating. I just, again, my wheels are spinning, like applying this to our own business, right? Like there's, again, so much opportunity. We're leaving it on the table because we're manually doing all this stuff. There's only a couple of us in sales. So, wow.
Yeah, like for example, right? Like, let me give you a great use case. If we created a roof mentor, a roof marketing mentor, some people might use it. But if we created a Joe roofing marketing mentor, because people have had experience interactions with you, if they knew that when they asked that AI, they were getting an answer that you would give them, they would be more inclined to use it because they've already had an experience with the person. And now really I'm just automating a person's access.
Right.
Right. Versus the product itself today might not work because people might not trust or use the product if it's generic. But a product that combines like all of your trainings, all of your coachings, all of your philosophies, but that's on demand to people 24/7 in some type of a, like affordable like subscription, right? Because the reality is the bigger you build your business, the less time you have to spend with your individual clients. And because your client is brand specific, like a percentage of your business is Joe Hughes. Right? Like people are signing up because they've worked with you for years. Like I'm on this podcast right now because you and I have been on Facebook texting each other for years.
Yeah.
And this is our first time connecting. But like, that's such a great example of this, right? Like those were just message communications and that you and I have had back and forth for years. So like, we feel like we actually have connection. Like we actually feel like we have engaged with each other informally over messaging so that, you know, when I hit you up the other day and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a podcast. And here we are, the same thing, right? Like if you gave people more access to you and your philosophies, your trainings, your coachings, who already see value in it, but they can just have it on demand, I think that could drive a lot of business for you.
Coming in 2024, the Joe Hughes AI chatbot for marketing and business education. Yeah, I love that, man. And now like I'm thinking like you're inspiring me to spend more time myself on this on a weekly basis. Do any companies that you work with, Jonathan, have like a full-time role in their company that's like CTO or it's like, you know, automation specialist? Like, is that a position yet? Because I can envision, I'm like, okay, all this makes sense. I want to hire a full-time person at Contractor Dynamics that is just in charge of like deploying and operating and managing all of the things that we're talking about today.
You know, big companies do. Like Creative Artist Agency has an entire legal department right now that is trying to figure out, like, this is a whole new formula, right? Like you're going to have Brad Pitt's Instagram account and then you're going to have AI Brad Pitt, right? So Brad might go to Venice and AI Brad Pitt might go to Paris. The difference is if you send Brad Pitt a direct message on Twitter or Instagram, you're never going to hear back from him. You program an AI likeness of Brad Pitt. And so now his fans can engage on AI Brad Pitt and whatever Brad wants to share. Brad wants to share his parenting or his acting or his business ideas, whatever he wants to give people access to, he can give people access to him in that. Right. And so like they're building like an entire department. T-Mobile has their whole initiative for this year is digital first. If they can do something digitally, they want to do that first before human because digital can scale, digital can grow fast, right? Digital can be shared faster, right? It's not just the idea of a human, it's the inconsistencies that we talked about, the replacement costs. Like most people aren't going to stay in a role for more than 1 to 2 years. So if you can train a machine to do the role, you're never replacing that machine, basically, right? If the machine can grow. And so smaller companies, I'm noticing like there are still like, you know, compared to T-Mobile or JP Morgan Chase, like a company doing $1 billion in revenue is still a small company, right? And so you've got these medium-sized companies with $1 billion in revenue. Some of them do, some of them don't. I think a lot of companies, I think a trend I'm seeing, which is a huge mistake, is a lot of people are looking to their like VP of IT. And so what happens is then they feel like they have to be like the gatekeeper and the AI expert, and they're slowing things down in a way that's really hurting their companies. Like I have one company that signed up with us in May and they're not launched yet. And I've launched like 35 companies since May. And it's because there's a bottleneck in their IT department, which is one person that really isn't an AI expert, but that is pretending to be, right? Because it's their job. Like this is what's intersecting in their domain. And the company doesn't have a person. I think most forward-thinking companies will that are small will start hiring those people. The big companies already have departments.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like if I were to sign up and be a client of yours, like I would be the bottleneck, and I would be that guy that signs up in May and doesn't onboard till December. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I'd rather pay someone 100 grand or 150 or whatever it ends up being to do all this stuff. And the ROI on that is like immediate, like make a few more sales and that person pays for themselves right away, you know?
Well, here, I'll tell you about like a campaign. So like take a customer, like let's say you have a company like Vivint that loses a customer for 3 years, or T-Mobile that loses a customer to a 12-month contract. Joe, we can do a drip campaign for 12 months for $5 to $10.
Wow.
Right? So you just lost a customer. You know they just signed a 12-month contract. You can't win them back. To just advertise to that customer 11 and a half months from now, it's not going to be effective. To talk to that customer and engage them every month for 12 months in order to win them back, that's effective. It's really cost prohibitive to do on like a $60 or $70 a month customer, but you could do it for $5 or $10 a year with this technology.
Wow. That's amazing. That's huge. So we've been talking a lot of upside, a lot of optimism, a lot of opportunities here, Jonathan. I just want to kind of have, add some balance here if we need it. Are there any like downsides or like second order consequences that maybe we're not thinking about, people might be leery of with all this AI coming out and moving very, very fast? Anything to say there?
I think the one downside is there's a lot of companies that are really just a layer to ChatGPT, right? And so what they're really doing is they built their business. And there's big businesses like Jasper's $1 billion business. It's basically an overlay tech on top of ChatGPT-4. So it's not bad. Doesn't mean you can't build a big valuable company. But what's happening is there are a lot of like it would be the equivalent to a digital version of Chuck in a Truck, right? It's like roofers know how to sell against the Chuck in the truck. And what I would say is be careful, because there's a lot of Chuck in the trucks on the digital side, like guys that are just one or two people, small shops, like they just built a little fuzzy layer on top of ChatGPT-4. And so if you make a large investment with them or you go all in with them, like things can change. They can shut down their APIs, or what we just saw this weekend, like one of the biggest risks. So like our model can move back and forth between Llama, ChatGPT-4, it's built really sophisticated where I can use any LLM. What we just saw over the last 4 days is extremely scary to me. If you've just gone all in with a layer that's on side of ChatGPT-4, like ChatGPT-4, if I told you a week ago, hey, they could just shut off their subscriptions, you would say, like, why would they do that? Well, they just lost like 50% of their team, and they were already having like massive slowdowns. Like their network was super lagging last week. And then the board fired their CEO on Friday, and Microsoft hired him Sunday night. And now more than half of their team is leaving to either Microsoft or someone else. So like our team has prepared for stuff like this, so we can move like all of our functioning models onto Llama or some other large language models. Anybody that's like sitting solely on ChatGPT-4 right now is at, I think, major risk. Like ChatGPT-4 could say, okay, we're going to go in another direction. They could potentially have just lost their $10 billion in funding from Microsoft. They just lost their CEO and their chief technology officer. They were the company in the world with the most valuable potential. Like they're not worth more than Microsoft 2.8 trillion, but they had more potential than any other company in the world. And now they've just lost half their company. And so it is. And so this will anchor a lot of people into, I knew it was a fad. Like I knew I don't need, like, so that's another danger is something like this happens at like sort of like confirmation bias, right? Like confirmation bias is like one of the most damaging opinions any successful entrepreneur can hold, because it anchors us into our beliefs that what we know is already true. And so we never have to change and evolve. We only seek the answers to justify the answers we already know, right? Like we only seek validation to justify things we already know. And so people that are looking to justify this, to not get in or play, I think that's going to be damaging to them long term. People that have models that are 100% dependent on just ChatGPT-4 right now, I think are a little risky. So I would de-risk that by having either a provider that can use multiple large language models, or take your money that you want to invest and split test it. And that's always good, right? Like none of us, if you're spending $20,000 a month on social media, are you spending all of that on one platform? Because you should probably spread it around on multiple platforms. And same kind of idea, right? Is like everybody, I think, should make a budget, even if their budget's like $3,000 or $5,000 for next month. Like we should say, like, how much do I want to invest in learning? And maybe your budget's $3,000 to $5,000. Go to a conference and get a product that's $100 a month. right? Like,
Yeah.
and then go to a conference and learn about like what it just like make a budget for 2024. What do you want to invest? And then decide, okay, if this is my budget, should I invest by learning intellectually? Should I invest by, learning tactically? Like, should we launch a campaign, based on my budget, how should I learn? And then just go with it. At some point, every single roofer didn't know how to do a roof, right? At some point, everyone was the new guy or the new gal on a job site. At some point, we were working or learning this from somebody else who was running a different business. And we learned all of these new things, what everything meant, how to piece them together. It's no different. We just need to apply ourselves to the discipline of learning, and everybody can.
Apply yourself to the discipline of learning. I love that. And I think a lot of people might be resistant to what you're talking about. I would argue that we as leaders, as business owners, have a responsibility to ourselves, our family, our team, our customers, our market, our industry, to invest that time, invest that money, invest that energy into learning and implementing some of these things. So awesome, Jonathan. Do you have your own podcast or anything where you're like giving people updates on the latest and greatest of all this stuff?
I've, speaking of discipline, you have had an amazing discipline. I just we should definitely wrap this up by thanking you for what you've done for the community, what you've done because you haven't just provided value for your paying clients. Like, I follow your stuff for years now because what you say is providing free value like every single day on your podcast, on your channels, on your posts, at your conventions. And it's a lot of hard work. People don't realize like what you're doing right now takes a lot of daily discipline, a lot of organization. I was really impressed with how you had outlined everything ahead. It was very easy for me to show up and participate with you and know what we were going to talk about. And like, boom, like we've covered a lot of great data in like less than 30 minutes, like really efficient. I think you're an amazing resource for the home services industry, and you're doing a great job. And the discipline that you have of creating content, and you train on this too, like you have to create content, fresh content all the time, is very, very difficult. I've never taken that on because I know how difficult it is. I enjoy going on Sam's podcast or JCast or SolarCon and other people. And maybe one day I'll bite off what you're doing, but it's what you're doing is, it takes a lot of work. Anybody can do a podcast for 30 days or 60 days. Like, you are creating meaningful content for our industry over several years. And no, I don't know if I want to commit to that. You and other people are already doing like a really great job.
No, that's cool. I appreciate all of that. We're definitely going to clip that and run that as an ad now. No, I appreciate that. And it's a big undertaking, and I respect that because you're so focused on what you're doing. I asked it because you shared a ton of value, and this stuff is constantly changing. Hopefully we can get this published in time where it's still relevant. But yeah, maybe we should have you on quarterly or something like that, just to kind of give us an update on the industry and what you're up to. That would be really cool.
That's how this happened, right? Is I was going to go to Florida last week, and I'm like, hey, and I saw, and I am looking for that. I want to learn as much as everybody else, right? And I want to test. Like, I've taken some free clients just to test. Like, I've taken clients in completely different verticals for free because it represents a learning opportunity. Like, in machine learning, like the machine learns. And so, so I appreciate you having me. I ended up not going to Florida last week, but I was hoping to catch you at RoofCon there, and I'd be happy to check in quarterly, or even participate in even group discussions that you might have with the other AI people that to see like, hey, what we should all be trying to build a sandbox together. So NVIDIA and Microsoft are two of $5 trillion companies. There's only $5 trillion companies in the world: Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, NVIDIA. Alibaba was really close, and I guess they've retraced. But anyway, I say that to say, we've been let into some like software development communities where there's like a lot of cutting edge things being discussed. And it's probably helped us as much as anything, just being in communities, working with other people who are working through problems, just sharing data. Like, we should all be sharing as much data as we have, because then the ecosystem that we're in can benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a big fan of that with our clients. We have different roundtable groups, shared learning. Hey, what's working for you? Let's apply it across the board. That's huge, because man, there's not enough time to figure out everything out on our own and make all the mistakes that we need to make to figure everything out. So cool, man. Thanks so much, Jonathan. Anything else you want to share? How do people follow your content or connect with you? Give us a call to action for those that want to learn more and maybe implement some of this stuff.
I mean, I'm pretty active on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Facebook and LinkedIn are just Jonathan Gibbs, Utah. Instagram is Latin. It's grate, sote. It means always thankful. And then if you I'm pretty active there. If people message me there, I try to engage as much as I can because of like this. I think I sent you a cold message like years ago, and then it started a dialogue and then a peer connection, which has led to, learning and value for both of us. So I try to respond as much as I can.
Yeah, likewise. I love the connections. So technology is an amazing thing. Man, I appreciate taking the time. I know it's a short week. You're a very busy guy. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your insights with us, and look forward to having you back to give us an update on some of these things. So thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, guys, we went in a lot of different directions in that conversation. There's some high level things, some more ground level things. No matter where you're at in your journey with tech, innovation, software, AI, you will be able to take some action based on what we talked about today. If you have any further questions about this stuff, please feel free to reach out to Jonathan. Follow him on the social media platforms. Reach out to me personally on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button on YouTube, the podcast. Make sure you're getting all of our content that we're dripping out to you guys every week to equip you with the tools that you need to transform and grow your leadership and your company. Talk to you soon.